Okay, it says I'm live. So staff who are trying to figure this out, go ahead and share the link again. See if we get somebody on. And we'll check the sound here while we're working on that. Sound any better, Colton? Stand by as people get signed on. The word is the sound is working again. Everybody hear me? Wait just another couple seconds here. Sorry for that little technical difficulty. Apparently our wireless is not just supporting streaming today for some reason, even though it's done it all the last couple weeks. So we're hardwired in and ready to roll. So welcome. Good to see you in the internet today. Give it another 60 seconds. If you shared it with someone before and they got on, share it again in quick. I see the sound is much better, so that's good. So I will share again, if you missed that sad news, Easter Peeps have stopped production. So there'll be no Easter Peeps this year, which is going to already be weird doing Easter online. But to do it with no Peeps, wow, not going to be good. Okay, we'll give it 30 seconds. Anybody else jumping on there, or if you've shared it? If you haven't shared it, share it quick. It looks like the mustache is not a popular item based on the feedback so far. Trent Talks each Wednesday. I'll try to just be opportunities to jump on, think about a Bible story maybe you haven't thought about in a while. Some kind of famous, like water into wine last week. Some like today, maybe not quite as familiar. But looking for the ones that have a sentence that really just stands out. Last week is when Mary told Jesus, do whatever he tells you to. And we talked about sometimes you take wait for an answer, but you obey while you wait. And the results are always worth the wait. Today's story has a great line too. In 5. Well, welcome to Trent's Talk 2. Question of the day. Would you like to get well? That's literally the question Jesus asked a guy a couple thousand years ago. But I think he would ask us that same question in many settings today. Let's take a look at the backstory to see the setting where that question was first asked. It's in John chapter 5. And John 5 says, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city near the sheep gate was the pool of Bethesda with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. Knowing that we're campus life and a lot of high school students are not even 19 yet, that would be 38 would be twice 19. He'd been sick for more than twice your lifetime. Pretty crazy. We don't know how many years he'd been laying around this pool, but he'd been sick for 38 years. So let's see what happens. It says Jesus walked into this place, first of all. First point simply is Jesus shows up. Jesus had a pretty busy week. This is the week that ends. This is Palm Sunday, this weekend. This would be when Jesus was entering a town for this Passover holiday. By the end of the week, he would be crucified and resurrected. Pretty big week, the biggest week in history. And even then, as he returned to Jerusalem, he walked into this pool area crowded with people who really had problems. They're blind, they're lame, they're paralyzed. Jesus shows up. If you're taking notes, number one, Jesus shows up. Jesus intentionally goes where people are hurting. And maybe yours is not a physical thing for 38 years, but what's the biggest problem, challenge, hurt, bad habits, hurting relationship? The list can go on and on. What would be your issue today? That probably the thing to ask is, what do you spend a lot of time thinking about when your head hits the pillow at night when you can't get to sleep? The thing that's just really bugging you, the thing you wish would go away. Maybe a big decision you have to make, a recent disappointment like seniors who don't get all your senior celebrations this spring. That's real life. We face issues. And the good news is Jesus shows up. Secondly, Jesus sees you. Matter of fact, Jesus knows all about you. Verse 6 says, when Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, would you like to get well? Now, I think that's a rhetorical question. I'm pretty sure the guy wanted to. But it's interesting that Jesus walked up. It says he knew, because he was God, that he'd been ill for a long time, and asked, would you like to get well? I can't, sir, the man said, for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles up. Someone else always gets there ahead of me. Interesting, I think like many of us, the guy fully understood his problem. He knew he had been paralyzed, crippled for 38 years. But his immediate response when someone asked if he wanted help was to explain why he couldn't get help. He says, well, someone always gets in the pool. I mean, the tradition is, it's not here in the text, but the tradition, and maybe one of the Gospels says something like this, when the water bubbled up, the first person that got into the pool was healed. Now, John doesn't write that here in his version, so maybe it was a little bit more tradition than reality, or maybe it happened some of the time. We don't really know. But in this case, the man obviously believed it. And he said, when the water bubbles up, I can't get in the water. Someone always beats me. He was telling the truth. He could not help himself. He needed help. But instead of looking to Jesus to say, yeah, I'd like to get well, he immediately goes to explain why he couldn't get well. Sometimes I think we sit in our little pity party saying, oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this, or I probably could get over this. I could do something different. I could be better. But we don't know where to turn for help when help is literally standing right in front of us, just like in this case. So kind of the side point here, if Jesus shows up and he sees you and really knows you, don't let your problem, your challenge, your habit, your disappointments cause you to lose hope. Because when Jesus shows up, things happen. So maybe especially in this stay home month number 2 we're going to get into here for the whole month of April, you can wallow in some of your problems, or you can decide this is a month I'm going to tackle this issue, and by May 1st I'm going to come up better the other side, because I'm going to accept Jesus' help. He really does understand. He offers his assistance, but he asks permission first. He says, would you like to get well? He says, let me, but we have to choose to let him. The famous let me verse is Matthew 11:28-30. Matthew 11:28-30. It says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Weary and burdened, issues, problems, just tired out. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I'm humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. It's pretty cool when Jesus shows up, because he sees you and really knows you. Things really can change. He's basically saying, with this word picture of a yoke, he will jump right into your stuff, whatever field you're plowing through, and take part of that burden, be linked together in a yoke with you, and walk your journey with you. I printed a picture because we changed everything around. Here it is. Some of you haven't seen a yoke recently. It looks kind of like that. There's a couple cows, Homer and Howard, I think their names. You see the yoke around their necks that holds them together. I don't know what it was like before they had yokes, but I just kind of picture a guy out there with a couple cows and one little plow, because they just have one furrow back then, trying to get across a field with straight rows so you could plant some stuff. Those things would be going all over the place. And some genius said, hey, if there's some way I could hold those two cows together side by side, we could go straight across the field. Wow. And they made a yoke. It doesn't hurt the cows. Matter of fact, they probably don't get slapped upside the head so much because they're going off track. It keeps them on track, keeps them going straight across the field, and you plant a beautiful field. You don't get the crops all mixed together, and corn in the peas and peas in the corn, all sorts of weird stuff. Pretty awesome. That's a word picture in an agricultural world that Jesus used. He said, instead of you just going all over the place and making a mess, let's yoke up, and I'll walk side by side, and we'll get something done. So it's pretty cool to know that Jesus shows up, Jesus sees you, and Jesus can help. Verse 8, as the story ends, Jesus told him, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Instantly, the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking. Pretty cool. Jesus walks in and says, would you like to get well? He sees you, and he can help. And when Jesus helps, things change. So trust him today. Whatever it is that you're most struggling with, let April 2020 be the time something happens. Let it start right now on April Fool's Day. That's a whole nother story, because there's no fooling about this. Jesus sees you, he knows you, and he can help. Would you like to get well? I hope so. Have a great day. See you next week.